And welcome back to the Financial Simple Experience. Hope you're doing well. It's a beautiful day in East Tennessee. You know, what's interesting is one of my colleagues is actually down in Cancun at this point and just turned on the weather this morning, and right where he is vacationing, the eye of a hurricane is supposed to hit him. So we sent a message out to him and said, "Hey, brother, you safe? You okay?" And he's like, "Yeah, I think we're going to live through this." So just want to let him know, because he's probably watching this, I'm going to have some coffee today in your honor. A little bit of dark coffee here on this morning here as we're recording this particular episode. So as we deal with individuals in the marketplace, we often have to deal with unscrupulous individuals, people who want to cause us problems. And as they cause us problems, one of the best ways they can do it is steal our identity. So today we're going to talk about identity theft. Now, to kind of lay the groundwork, you've heard of this. Maybe you've even experienced it. I know in the last couple of years, we've had several clients who've had their identities stolen, so to speak. They have had fake passports applied for. They've had fake driver's license applied for loans. They've even had fraudulent tax returns filed in their names, thus wreaking lots and lots and lots of havoc. So perhaps you know somebody who has dealt with identity theft. This year is amazing. And so to bring a real light to identity theft this year, I wanted to bring in one of my colleagues, Mr. Dane McFarland, to join us today to speak on this subject of identity theft, and especially identity theft amidst COVID. How are you doing, Dane?
I'm doing well, Justin. How are you today?
Buddy, I'm greatly blessed, highly favored, but you know that about me, man. You know that
I do.
About me. Yeah. So we're going to talk about identity theft today. And you've done a lot of research at my request and our team's request, because we're starting to see people deal with this more and more these days. So I know you've found seven common themes or common identity theft practices that are happening amidst COVID this year, which surprised me on some of these points. So let's start off by going through these seven perhaps new type of scams that are showing up right now amidst 2020.
Yeah, Justin. So these are our seven increasingly common COVID scams, specifically for this year with what we're dealing with, like you said, COVID. The first one is you've got a lot of e-commerce vendors selling masks, sanitizers, test kits, things of that nature. Now, you've got these vendors, these e-commerce vendors, taking your payment, but the product never shows up for you. You could spend $200 on masks or sanitizer, whatever it is, and never receive a thing. And it just happens if they don't take your personal information and credit card information. You know, that's the lucky end.
So if that happens, I'm assuming one of the things that we often teach is we're buying something through the internet. We don't want to use our debit card because it doesn't have the same protection. So we want to use a credit card. So if somebody ends up receiving or placing an order and never receiving the product, then they just simply report that to the credit card company as product not received. Am I correct?
Yes, sir. And you want to get copies of those statements from the credit card, from whatever financial institution you're working with, just so that you can have that on hand as you work through these fraudulent issues.
So the second thing kind of surprised me. I've seen this over the years. You know, I've been in the industry 18, almost 19 years now, it seems like. Been here a while. I've seen a lot of different things in my world, working with business owners for that time period. And you were telling me about the investment schemes that are happening right now, and pump and dump schemes. That's actually a statement. If you want to Google pump and dump schemes, they're really popular. So let's talk through this idea that you've actually discovered that you're seeing very rampant in this particular year.
Yeah, so I actually first learned about this in Rick Edelman's book, The Pump and Dump Schemes. We're seeing a lot more of those today. Promoters come along, they start to spread positive yet false rumors about a company. It's in an effort to increase the stock price, get a bunch of other people to jump on board, and then while the stock is rising, the promoters will sell all their stock at a super high price. You know, after the hype disappears, they start to see that the stock price plummets. Now, the promoters are already out. They've made their money, but the investors who are left over, they're kind of out of luck there with the lowered stock prices.
Exactly. You know, Rick Edelman is one of my heroes in the financial world. If you've never read any Rick Edelman's books, I challenge you. He writes a really good book called The Truth About Money. It's one of my favorite books out there. I read it pretty consistently. He's one of the podcasts that I love to listen to because I like the way he thinks. He's a balanced individual. He's a comprehensive planner, and he's been that way for years, one of the top planners in our country. Does an outstanding job explaining this pump and dump, and you're right, man. We're seeing it rampant right now. And the SEC and FINRA, they're doing their best they can to keep up with it, but candidly, they just don't have the manpower. So you got to be cautious for these pump and dump schemes. So what's our third thing that you've seen this year?
So third are phishing. We've heard about phishing emails. There's another thing called Vishing, where people will use voice over IP. They'll call you through your phone. They'll send you email updates, texts, things like that to try to entice, an unsuspecting person to click on a link or send you some type of information, or, hey, react to something really urgent. And a lot of people are seeing this and getting affected by this.
One of the four things you showed me was spoof government or health organization communications. I thought this was interesting, especially amidst a pandemic. Let's go into detail on what exactly you discovered there.
So with, I could call you up and say, hey, I'm from the World Health Organization. We're doing kind of a poll. They can start to fish out some information about your family, about your friends, and they could not even talk to you or try to steal your identity, but they have enough information to go off of to give them some credibility for your friends, your family.
Right in line with that is also this fake vaccine and miracle cures. One of the things that I personally believe in is taking care of our body. I like to exercise, as you know. And by the way, if you ever go work out with Dane or any of the other guys in the office, they love to jump rope. It seems like that's all they know how to do is jump rope every single time we get into the gym. But anyways, I digress. One of the things we've noticed this year are these miracle cures. I mean, I've seen them more than ever. Avoid COVID by taking this particular thing. And I've actually dug into those, and oftentimes they're generated in a different country, but are we seeing more and more of these come up as scams at this particular point?
We are. We've been, keeping an ear out for the news. This vaccine that's being pushed forward by Trump. But to date, there are no cures or no vaccines in production that have been passed and approved by the USDA.
There are a ton of employment issues out there right now. We reached a high, almost 42 million Americans. I think 43 million Americans were on unemployment at the height, or I would say the low of the COVID situation. Right now, we're seeing the employment numbers drop pretty fast, pretty rapidly. But we're also seeing some scams and some ideas that people can get information in order to affect our identity. Once again, talk to me through what you're seeing out there.
So a lot of people, have been laid off, have been, looking for work through this COVID period. And so a lot of people are hiring. Great opportunity for them to be able to send in a resume or a cover letter that, it could look like a Word document link. It could look like something else, some type of spreadsheet, but surprise, it actually has a virus in it or some type of Trojan that gets into the business owner's systems. And it could affect the individual computer, it could affect the network, but that's something that you want to think about. If you've never talked to a person, if you've never, if they haven't gone through your hiring process, be really careful about them. If they have a phone number on there that you can call in the email, do that first, but don't click on any links that they send you if you have no idea who Jack or Joe is.
One of the biggest ones that I see is number 7 here that you identified is this phony charity donations. We are a philanthropic people in the United States. We're a giving people. We do it. We see the numbers that we are very, very charitable and minded as individuals, as businesses, and candidly as states in a country. That's just the way we are designed. But, I get frustrated when I see people prey on our philanthropic desires or our intents. What donation offers or phony charity examples have you seen out there at this particular point?
Well, you kind of hit it on the head for me is, my wife is a caring and open-hearted person toward people. And it's tough to see when people take advantage of that or to hear about things like that. A lot of people are hurting right now due to COVID, due to other issues that are in their lives. And we see a lot of these charity donations, let me put that in quotations, for these phony offers. Do your research, cross-check these companies or these organizations. You can go to registrations or databases to check their registration, such as Charity Check, Charity Watch. The Triple B has a Wise Giving Alliance. Another one's called Charity Navigator. Go to those databases, check the registrations of these organizations because they could sound similar, but do your research. Get your help to the actual people who need it, not the fisher down the road.
So, Dane, you've compiled a lot of information here for our listeners, our viewers, those watching us on YouTube, on Facebook, those of you who maybe are listening to the podcast as you're driving in the car. I want to remind you that whenever the producers finish this production up, they'll actually drop a link to all these different websites that you can go and check out various things for yourself, you personally, etc. So let me just review these 7 things, and then I want to dive into the most common ones that we see over time and how we deal with that. So let's go through number 1. We're seeing in 2020, especially amidst COVID, we're seeing e-commerce vendor scams for masks, sanitizer, test kits, things of that nature. Pump and dump schemes are out there. People are scared of the stock market. They really were a couple months ago. And so when people are fearful, it's an opportunity for individuals to come in and give us problems for those individuals who want to do things correctly. So we see that happening right now. We see phishing and vishing schemes come up at this particular point. We're seeing spoofed government and health organizations where it looks like from something like the World Health Organization come about. Man, the miracle cures, they're a dime a dozen right now. We're seeing employment posts for scams. You've even heard me on the podcast talk about to our business owners, now's a great time to reshuffle your team and find that superstar to help you grow to this next particular position. We're now seeing charitable donation offers, and you're going to see more of those happen as we go throughout the rest of the year. So a lot of different things happening this year on the identity theft, and there's a reason for each of these things. It's so they can get your personal information. I had a family member that somebody told a big story to. Before you knew it, they were sucked into this story, and it cost them thousands of dollars in order to get out of the story. So you've got to be aware of this particular issue. So now I want to jump to the areas of identity theft, which are the most common. These are the tried and true methods that crooks use to steal our identity. But before we do, let's have a word from this week's sponsor.
One day you will retire, and when you do, you will need the money made from the sale of your business to be added to your financial egg basket. In the book, The Ultimate Sale by Justin Goodbread, he discusses how your business is valued along with ways to increase that value until that day you decide to step away. To download a sample of The Ultimate Sale, go to financiallysimple.com/sample.
So my guest today is Mr. Dane McFarland here with the team at Heritage Investors, and we're talking about identity theft. We're diving deep into the things that have transpired in 2020, and now I want to look, Dane, at those tried and true mechanisms, those things which, if we took COVID out of the situation, if we took the national catastrophe out of the situation, and we dove strictly into that area of identity theft, what is the most popular form of identity theft out there?
The most popular method would be phishing emails.
Okay, talk to me about what phishing emails are.
So phishing email is it's basically an email that's sent out. It's something that let's kind of break it down. So you have a subject line when an email shows up. Usually these will have some type of, if it's a phishing email, some type of sense of urgency. It has some type of intense language or something that sounds scary. Hey, the IRS is going to come after you for blah, blah, blah. COVID's going to blah, 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 all your accounts, right? It's something that goes for a call to action. That's something that you initially want to look for. Now, we go down, who's it coming from? The sender may be, they may appear to be almost legitimate, but they may have some words misspelled. They may have their name separated, like, hey, customer space service / whatever at Apple Pay, for example. They may have an underscore. They may have a punctuation, customer.service at whatever. You can really tell from that from line if these people are actually the representatives that they claim to be.
Dan, one of the most interesting things I've seen on the from line is I've actually seen emails come in from friends. It actually looks like, even our office, we have a system set up to protect our clients, but it looks like a client sent us an email, and you got to really dig into it. And it's like, wait a second, Mr. Fred Flintstone doesn't typically communicate in this method. I wonder what's going on. Have you ever seen that? And if you do, how do you deal with it?
That's exactly something that they, as we go through our licenses and certifications, that's something they talk to us about. You really have to keep an eye out for something like that. Always, hey, we want to do a trade over here. We want to do something like that. But it's knowing your clients. It's knowing your friends and family. They don't talk like that. They don't reach out to me like that.
Yeah, so sign off, I'll typically say something like regards, blessings, something of that nature. But I had one that somebody forwarded to me. It's like, at your service. And I was like, wait, I don't think I ever say at your service. And I have a couple of times. Maybe that's not typically the way that I write. So people even recognize, those of us who consistently communicate via email. You know, it's not uncommon to see the son of the deposed king of Nigeria or something of that nature. Whenever we see it, it's like, okay, this is definitely a scam. But, you know, in reality, the truth is the best lie is the one which lies closest to the truth, right?
That's true.
The biggest deceit is the one that looks almost perfect. The best forgery is the one that looks like the real thing. And so we've got to be ever diligent as we're looking at our phishing or vishing email or systems, because people are ultimately trying to gain access into our particular lives. So that's one of the big ones that's out there, tried and true. Another one that we've often seen is where people try to use our business name for loans. And I'd love for you to talk through, first of all, we know why they do it. They do it so they can get money and then hold us on the hook for it using our tax identification number or something of that nature. But how do we go in and check and protect and repair if this has happened to us?
Well, one thing I do want to hit on with just going back to the phishing emails is if there's a link in there, don't click on it in the body of the email. Don't click on it. Hover over it. Make sure that it looks like a legitimate web address, and then go type that web address maybe on another page if you're willing to do that, but don't click on anything like that. Now, to your question about how do you protect against the business identity theft? Businesses have a lot of public information out there generally. So going after an individual, it's harder because you do need more personal information, but going after a business, you can get lines of credit, you can get loans, you can get any type of write-off on your taxes, something like that. The first thing to do is check your business filings with your state's secretary office. Do that at least once a year. What business filings have been registered with the secretary of my state? That's the first place I would look.
So as we go forward in this, there's a lot of different scams that are out there this year, 2020, as we looked at the first 7. Those 2 that we just spoke about are 2 tried and true common scams that we'll see to end up getting our identity and having somebody be able to steal our identity, which causes us a lot of problems. Let's dive down into protection for those individuals who perhaps are working from home. We're right now in an unusual place in our economy. We've never been here before, to where we have a transient society. We have where we used to go to an office or to a location, warehouse, etc. Now we have a ton of people working from home, and we're now ever more connected than before. In fact, I was just speaking with a CPA this morning who her husband, which is a corporate executive at a publicly traded company, is now working from home because of the circumstances that their company is dealing with. So as we're working from home, let's go through these 5 tips that you pulled together so people can take away some action steps that can protect not only the business owner, but everybody, those of us who are engaging through digital interface with the internet as we work from home.
Sure. So the first one is you want to secure your home network. You want to use a strong password, not just the one that comes on the side of your, router or modem or whatever. Get that, but learn how to change that into a strong password, something that has alphanumeric numbers, some special characters, something that people won't be able to automatically guess. Use that, make sure it's a WPA2 or WPA3 level encryption. Now, the second thing would be limiting access to your work device. Who has access to your device? Is it a kid? Is it your spouse? And why do they have access to it? What could go wrong? I think about there was a time when I was probably 4 or 5, and my dad was working on his, work computer from home, and he had asked me to bring him a glass of milk. And I don't know why, I don't know what was going through my mind, but I would get to him, and I'd get, probably 3 feet away, and I'd say, "Hey, Dad, catch," and just chuck it at him. Full glass of milk, just chuck it at him from 3 feet away. Guess what happened to his work computer?
I can almost bet what happened to you. My goodness, I didn't realize you were a little gremlin even way back then, Dane. I've learned something new about you today.
I mean, working with you over these past couple months, I'd hope you catch on. But
Yeah, guys, I can't walk around a corner without him saying boo or trying to scare me or sneak up on me. And even yesterday, he beat me in paper, rock, scissors. It was bad. So we're limiting the access to our work device. And then number 3, let's move on here. What number 3 is what?
yeah, just be careful where you click. Whether it's an attachment, whether it's again a link in the body, hover over it. Don't open any attachments that you don't know, whether it's from a friend or whoever. You know generally what your friends send you. You know generally how people talk to you, and that includes social media. You're going from your phone, you're going from your work device. You click on something in social media. That's a great gateway for fraudsters to get into your accounts.
And number 4, you said be skeptical about job offers or suspicious employment applications. Yeah, that's happening a lot right now. But why?
Well, getting into the process, getting in through, your HR. Your HR has access to all of your employment records. They probably have access to a lot of what's going on your clients' accounts or customers' accounts as well. That's a great source of, if I were an untoward person, that would be one place that I would really try to target.
And then what was the 5th thing that you had compiled for us?
You want to make sure your antivirus and anti-malware protection is up to date, Justin. We were just talking earlier today about one of your anti-protection, finding a couple things, and so we're going to get started working on that after this.
Yeah, one of my favorite tech people to listen to is Kim Commando. I don't know if you've ever heard of her, ladies and gentlemen, but she does an outstanding job. You can check her. I think it's Kamdo, if I remember right, Kim Commando. But you can look at her website. She goes into detail. In fact, we'll put a link in her website. But no, she goes into detail about how to protect your home computer, your business computers, things of that nature, and keeps us all up to date with the most latest and greatest. So, look, we covered a lot of information today, friends. I realize that. Dane, I appreciate you being here today, brother. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Justin. Appreciate it.
So look, I realize that life is hard. I get it. And man, trying to deal with yet another thing that could cause us problems like phishing or vishing or these scams, I mean, pump and dumps, you name it, they're all out there. We've got to be vigilant. We got to be sober, be vigilant, because our adversary, they want to destroy us and they don't care. I can tell you this one time that I got scammed for $15,000. Yes, $15,000. And it broke my life. We did everything right. We didn't do anything wrong. And this was at the beginning of the internet days. And I bought this beautiful Ford Expedition that I never saw come. Everything was good. Ended up being a Fed sting was in place, and they took care of the people, but money was gone. So you got to be vigilant. It can happen to anybody. We've had, like I said, a lot of clients this year have been affected by this. So one of the things that I love to do is use an identity theft protection service. I personally use LifeLock. There are many out there. That's just the one I personally use. You may want to consider that at this particular point, and then be vigilant. Take these 5 points that Dane covered with you and apply it to your personal life. And apply it in such a way that you can protect yourself. Look, friends, I realize life is hard. I get it. Dealing with this mess, it just gets frustrating. Everybody's always feels like people are always trying to hinder us or harm us in some way. But life is good. Life is good. The reason why they want to do it is because we're a blessed people. We are. That's amazing to think about. And life can be frustrating, especially if you happen to have identity theft come your way. Look, it doesn't have to be. We're going to continue to make our lives at least financially simple. Hey, look, y'all go out and make it a great day.